For centuries, the Shroud of Turin has been surrounded by mystery. Preserved in the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist, in the historic city of Turin, this ancient linen cloth is believed by many to be the burial shroud of Jesus Christ. The cloth carries the faint image of a crucified man, a figure whose wounds appear to match the descriptions recorded in the Gospels. But here is where the mystery deepens. For decades, scientists, historians, and theologians have debated one question: is the Shroud of Turin an authentic relic connected to the burial of Jesus, or is it an elaborate medieval creation? When Grok analyzed centuries of research, historical records, and scientific studies surrounding the shroud, it uncovered something extraordinary hidden in the details of the cloth itself. Patterns within the fibers, unexplained image formation, and environmental clues from the surroundings of Turin that raise new questions about how this relic could have been preserved for so long. Some experts believe the shroud may hold the most detailed physical trace ever connected to the crucifixion story. Others argue that the evidence points to a much later origin. But the deeper Grok looked into the data, the more the mystery grew. Before we reveal what Grok's analysis uncovered about the Shroud of Turin, discoveries that continue to divide scientists and believers around the world, make sure you hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because what comes next may completely change how we look at one of history's greatest religious mysteries, the mystery surrounding the Shroud. For almost 2,000 years, Christians have told the same story. Jesus Christ was crucified, placed in a tomb, and on the third day, the tomb was found empty. But in the historic city of Turin, one object has continued to raise questions about what may have happened during those final moments after the crucifixion. The object is known as the Shroud of Turin, an ancient linen cloth believed by many to be the burial shroud of Jesus. The shroud is carefully preserved inside the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist, where it has been protected for centuries. On the cloth appears the faint image of a man who shows marks of crucifixion, wounds on the wrists and feet, a pierced side, and injuries that resemble those described in the Gospels. When Grok 4 AI analyzed the research surrounding the Shroud of Turin, it uncovered something fascinating. For decades, scientists studying the cloth have struggled to explain how the mysterious image was formed. Unlike paintings or drawings, the image is not made from pigments or dyes. Instead, it appears to exist only on the surface fibers of the linen, almost like a photographic negative burned lightly into the fabric. Even more mysterious, when scientists first photographed the shroud in 1898, the negative image revealed a far clearer face than the cloth itself seemed to show. Researchers have studied pollen grains, dust particles, and environmental traces found on the cloth. Some of these microscopic clues suggest connections to regions in the Middle East, raising questions about where the shroud may have traveled before arriving in Turin. Over the centuries, the relic passed through several locations before finally being placed in Turin in the 16th century. Since then, the city and its surroundings have become one of the most famous destinations for religious pilgrims and investigators alike. Yet, despite modern technology and countless scientific studies, the true origin of the image on the Shroud of Turin remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in religious history. Some believe it could be the physical trace left behind at the moment of resurrection. Others insist it is an extraordinary artifact created centuries later. But the deeper researchers look, the more questions seem to appear. And that mystery continues to draw attention to the quiet cathedral in Turin, where one of history's most debated relics still rests today. The warnings and questions hidden in the shroud. When Grok 4 AI examined decades of scientific research surrounding the Shroud of Turin, it highlighted something profound. The cloth is not just a historical artifact. For many believers and researchers, it represents a silent message about suffering, sacrifice, and faith. The image on the shroud shows a man who endured extreme torture, wounds across his body that closely resemble the crucifixion described in the Bible. The markings match what historians know about Roman execution methods during the time of Jesus Christ. But the deeper meaning researchers see in the shroud goes beyond physical wounds. Many theologians believe the cloth acts as a reminder that faith is not found in grand buildings or rituals alone, but in the inner transformation of the human heart. Throughout history, people have built magnificent churches, towers, and cathedrals in the name of Christ. Yet the image on the shroud tells a different story, a story of humility, suffering, and quiet endurance. When Grok analyzed historical interpretations of the shroud, it found that many scholars view the relic as a warning about how easily spiritual messages can become overshadowed by power and politics. The man on the cloth does not appear crowned with earthly glory. Instead, he appears wounded, beaten, and abandoned. For many believers, that image carries a powerful lesson. True faith often walks through hardship rather than comfort. Over the centuries, the Shroud of Turin has also inspired prophecies and speculation about the future of faith. Some religious scholars believe the shroud symbolizes a time when humanity will once again search for deeper spiritual truth rather than outward displays of religion. Others believe its mysterious image may represent the moment between death and resurrection, a moment science still cannot explain. When Grok examined the history of the shroud, it also uncovered something fascinating about the city that protects it. The relic has been preserved for centuries inside the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist, quietly watched over by the people of Turin. Over time, the city became a gathering place for pilgrims, scientists, historians, and skeptics, all drawn by the same mystery. Some arrive believing they will witness physical proof of the resurrection. Others come hoping to expose a medieval forgery. Yet after decades of research, no single explanation has been able to solve the puzzle completely. Microscopic analysis shows the image is not painted. Chemical tests struggle to reproduce the exact process that created it. And digital imaging reveals three-dimensional information hidden within the fibers of the cloth. These discoveries have led some scientists to suggest that whatever formed the image may have involved an intense burst of energy, something unlike any known artistic technique from the medieval world. Still, skepticism remains strong in the scientific community. Some researchers argue the cloth may date back to the Middle Ages. Others believe it may have been altered over time by fires, handling, and restoration efforts. But even critics admit one thing: the Shroud of Turin remains one of the most studied and mysterious artifacts in human history. For believers, the shroud represents hope, the idea that death was not the final chapter. For skeptics, it represents one of history's greatest unsolved puzzles, and for the quiet city of Turin, it remains a relic that continues to draw the attention of the entire world, which raises a fascinating question. If modern AI systems like Grok can analyze centuries of data, scientific reports, and historical records in seconds, could the answers to the mystery of the Shroud of Turin finally be within reach? Or will this ancient cloth continue to guard its secret for generations to come? Hidden meanings in the shroud. For centuries, the Shroud of Turin has been studied not only as a historical artifact, but also as a silent message about life, death, and what may lie beyond. When researchers examined the cloth in detail, they discovered something extraordinary. The image of the man on the shroud is unlike any painting or sculpture. It appears almost like a shadow, left behind at a single moment in time. Scientists noticed that the image exists only on the very top layer of the linen fibers. It does not penetrate deep into the cloth the way ink or pigment would. This has led some researchers to suggest that the image may have been created by an unknown burst of energy or radiation-like effect that lightly scorched the surface of the fabric. While science has not confirmed this theory, it has never been able to fully recreate the image using known artistic techniques. For many believers, this mysterious imprint represents more than a scientific puzzle. They believe it may capture the moment when Jesus Christ rose from the tomb. The man on the cloth appears to have suffered intense wounds, marks from scourging, injuries to the head resembling a crown of thorns, and puncture wounds in the wrists and feet consistent with crucifixion. But what fascinates researchers even more is what the shroud does not show. There are no signs of decay, no traces that suggest the body remained wrapped in the cloth for long periods. Some scholars interpret this as evidence that the body disappeared or was removed in an unusual way. In that sense, the shroud tells a silent story about the boundary between life and death. It reminds people that the crucifixion was not simply an end, but possibly the beginning of something greater. The relic has also inspired deeper reflections about the meaning of faith. The image on the shroud does not show a king dressed in royal robes or surrounded by glory. Instead, it shows a man who endured suffering and humiliation. For many theologians, this represents a powerful lesson. True strength is not found in power or wealth, but in humility, sacrifice, and compassion. Over the centuries, the people of Turin have quietly protected this mysterious cloth inside the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist. Pilgrims travel from all over the world to see it during rare public exhibitions. Some come searching for proof of the resurrection. Others come simply hoping to feel closer to one of the most important moments in Christian history. Yet despite centuries of investigation, the Shroud of Turin continues to guard its deepest secrets. Every new scientific study seems to answer one question while raising another. Digital imaging has revealed three-dimensional information hidden within the cloth. Pollen analysis suggests the shroud may have traveled through regions of the Middle East before arriving in Europe, and historical records show it survived fires, wars, and centuries of political turmoil. Still, the central mystery remains unsolved. Was this cloth truly the burial shroud of Jesus Christ? Or is it an extraordinary creation from the medieval world that somehow fooled generations of scientists and historians? The debate continues even today, but one thing is certain. The quiet cathedral in Turin still holds one of the most mysterious objects ever discovered. And as modern technology, including advanced artificial intelligence, continues to analyze the evidence, researchers are beginning to ask a new question. If the Shroud of Turin really captured a moment lost in time, could it also be holding clues about one of the greatest mysteries in human history? The lost story behind the shroud. For generations, Christians around the world have believed the same story. Jesus Christ was betrayed, arrested, tortured, and crucified under the authority of the Roman Empire. After his death, his body was wrapped in linen and placed inside a tomb. But in the quiet city of Turin, one mysterious relic has kept that story at the center of debate for centuries. The object is the Shroud of Turin, a long piece of linen cloth that many believe once wrapped the body of Jesus after the crucifixion. When modern researchers and even advanced AI systems examined the enormous collection of historical documents and scientific reports about the shroud, they discovered something remarkable. The cloth appears to preserve a detailed image of a crucified man whose wounds match the descriptions recorded in the New Testament. The figure shows injuries consistent with Roman scourging, puncture wounds in the wrists and feet, and a wound in the side that resembles the spear described in the Gospel accounts. Yet despite these striking details, the story of the shroud has never been simple. Some historians believe the relic may date back to the medieval period, suggesting it could have been created centuries after the time of Christ. Others argue that the evidence points much further back in history. Pollen grains trapped within the linen fibers appear to originate from plants found in regions of the Middle East, including areas around Jerusalem. Microscopic dust particles also suggest the cloth may have traveled across several ancient trade routes before eventually arriving in Europe. Historical records show that the shroud appeared publicly in France during the 14th century before being moved to Italy, where it eventually found a permanent home in the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist. From that moment on, Turin became one of the most important pilgrimage destinations in Christianity. But the greatest mystery was revealed in 1898. During one of the first photographic studies of the cloth, an Italian photographer named Secondo Pia captured an image of the shroud on glass photographic plates. When he developed the negative image in his darkroom, something extraordinary appeared. The negative revealed a clear and lifelike face that was far more detailed than the faint image visible on the cloth itself. In other words, the shroud behaved almost like a photographic negative, centuries before photography was even invented. This discovery stunned both scientists and theologians. How could a medieval artist have created an image with photographic properties long before cameras existed? Over the decades that followed, scientists used advanced imaging, spectroscopy, and chemical testing to analyze the cloth. Some experiments concluded that the fibers had been lightly scorched in a way that could not easily be reproduced by paint or ink. Others suggested the image might have formed through an unknown chemical reaction involving heat, light, or energy. Yet no experiment has been able to recreate the exact characteristics of the shroud's mysterious image. For believers, the relic represents a silent witness to one of the most important moments in Christian history. For skeptics, it remains an unsolved historical puzzle that challenges both science and faith. Even today, the Shroud of Turin rests quietly inside its protective case in the Cathedral of Turin, watched over by historians, scientists, and the faithful. And despite centuries of research, one question still lingers. If modern technology and even artificial intelligence continues to analyze the evidence surrounding the shroud, could the mystery of this ancient cloth finally reveal what truly happened after the crucifixion? Or will the Shroud of Turin remain one of the greatest unanswered questions in human history? Turin, the city that guards the mystery. The city of Turin is one of the most historic and mysterious places in Europe. Nestled in northern Italy at the foot of the Alps, it has long been a center of culture, faith, and political power. Unlike many cities that simply display ancient relics, Turin became the quiet guardian of one of Christianity's most debated artifacts, the Shroud of Turin. For centuries, this sacred cloth has been preserved inside the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist, protected from fire, war, and the passage of time. But the story of how the shroud arrived in Turin is just as fascinating as the relic itself. Historical records show that the cloth first appeared publicly in France during the 14th century. It was later acquired by the powerful House of Savoy, one of Europe's most influential royal families. In 1578, the family moved the shroud to their capital city, Turin, where it has remained ever since. From that moment forward, the city became deeply connected to the mystery of the shroud. Pilgrims began traveling from across Europe to see the cloth. Scholars came hoping to study it. Artists attempted to capture its mysterious image. Over time, Turin gained a reputation not only as a political center, but also as a place where faith and science collide. Throughout history, the Shroud of Turin survived many dangers. In 1532, a devastating fire nearly destroyed the chapel where it was stored. Molten silver from the reliquary dripped onto the folded cloth, burning holes through several layers of linen. Miraculously, the central image remained mostly untouched. Nuns later repaired the damaged sections with careful stitching, preserving the relic for future generations. Centuries later, in 1997, another dramatic fire broke out inside the cathedral's chapel. As flames spread through the building, firefighters rushed inside and smashed the bulletproof glass case protecting the shroud, saving it just moments before the roof collapsed. Events like these have only deepened the aura of mystery surrounding the relic. To many believers, the survival of the cloth through so many disasters feels almost miraculous. Today, the Shroud of Turin is rarely displayed to the public. Most of the time, it rests in a climate-controlled chamber protected from light and environmental damage. But when it is occasionally shown during special exhibitions, millions of visitors travel to Turin to witness it. Scientists continue to study the cloth using modern technology, from high-resolution digital imaging to advanced chemical analysis. Yet the deeper they look, the more questions appear. How was the mysterious image formed? Why does the cloth contain three-dimensional information embedded in its fibers? And why has no known artistic technique ever successfully recreated it? These unanswered questions keep the Shroud of Turin at the center of one of history's greatest debates between faith and science. For the people of Turin, however, the shroud is more than a scientific puzzle. It is a symbol of history, belief, and the enduring search for truth. And as modern technology, and even artificial intelligence, continues to analyze centuries of research, a new possibility emerges. Perhaps the answers to this ancient mystery have been waiting all along inside the quiet cathedral of Turin. What do you think about the mystery of the Shroud of Turin? Could this ancient cloth truly hold a connection to Jesus Christ? Or is it simply one of history's greatest unsolved artifacts? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next deep dive into the mysteries of history.